Welcome to another episode of War Hero to Superhero. This week we are in the Superhero Battle Room, and we have our Superhero Battle Room guest, Sean Romero, that went over and transformed his life from the service now to fighting for men to go over and sanctify their lives and helping them with anxiety, PTSD, and other ways. We're going to hear his backstory, where his struggles came from, when he went over and transformed, and how he's going to go assist you to make that transformation. So I want to thank on the stage to Sean. So thank you for joining me.
Hey, what's going on, Daniel? Appreciate you having me, man.
Yeah, you're welcome. So let's get into it. So I want to have you share to our audience, what is your war hero story? How long were you in the service? What you did, and also how you got out?
All right, man. So I originally enlisted September 12th of 2000 in the U.S. Air Force. I was with the New Jersey Air National Guard. I was an F-16 crew chief for 14 years. And then I took 3 years off of maintenance, and I became a flight engineer on the KC-10 in the Air Force Reserves with the 76th Air Refueling Squadron out of McGuire Air Force Base.
Wow.
In 2018, I was going through, this is like one of the roughest years I've ever had in my life. And I ended up having to resign out of the Air Force because I was going through a divorce and becoming a single dad of three. Just really wasn't conducive being there full time and having to do everything that required me to be as an F-16 crew chief. So it would just came to a head where it was like, hey man, I had to leave. And it wasn't because I wanted to, it wasn't because that I couldn't do the job anymore. It was just because, my family at that point, my family just came first. And so I went through the divorce. I went through the separation of, having to find out what my life is and redefine myself in my life, from being, the F-16 fighter guy. I was the F-16 crew chief. I was the, that guy, the airplane guy. And, that's really what it came down to. So, in 2018, after 17 and a half years, I called it a day, really.
Wow.
So now here I am, and I just had to basically redefine myself.
How much did you have? 17 years of active time?
So a lot of the time was active because I was activated for 9/11, Operation Noble Eagle, and then we did several tours out, in the desert, and then I sat alert at our alert facility, and so I did that for many years. And then what happened was when I left the Guard and went to the reserves just to fly and stuff, I did a few active components there. But when I came back to the Guard, I became a federal technician. So I was just basically, after that was just Guard and reserve time. But I was still there full time because I was a federal technician. I was a WG-12 there. And then whenever we got put on active orders for deployments and stuff like that, all that active time came into play. But yeah, total time is 17 and a half years, man.
Man, so close to being there. Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So, yeah, well, families always comes first. That's our motto. If your bedroom and your living room is not straight, then your boardroom is going to collapse anyway. So, you're one of the few men that I meet that actually doesn't go over and try to keep pulling through and be like, I just got a couple more years, but legacy is more important. So, what was the hardest and lowest point of that? I mean, obviously the divorce and taking care of the kids and everything else, but now you're out of the service too. So how did you go over and make that quote unquote transition, as we call it?
It took a while for the transition because, when you get out, you still have that mindset. You're still expecting to go every morning, wake up at dark 30, throw on the uniform and go out the door and do your thing. And for a while, I had to basically retrain my brain saying that, hey, man, that's not going to happen anymore. That's not happening anymore. I hung up my uniform, put it in the closet, and I closed the closet, and I didn't open up the door ever again. And so because I just couldn't see it. And that really, it hurt me a lot. And that's when it really started going into deep depression and dealing with a lot of deep anxiety because, for a long time, I identified myself in uniform, for 17 and a half years, literally every single day since September 12th of 2000, basically. I was that was my life. That was who I was. That's who I identified with. And so I kind of lost myself in that. And a lot of veterans kind of do that also. You know, they lose their identity of who they truly are, who God says they are. And, you know, because we wear that uniform, we're doing it for not for the glory, but because this is part of our life. This is who we are. This is what we do. And this is, you know, we want to be part of that team. And once I was forced to take that off, man, it was like almost exposing. The only best way I can describe it is it's exposing a very a nerve. You know, you're exposing that nerve, and now you're at the elements of everything. And man, it was just hitting it so hard, you know, and especially the kids didn't really understand it. You know, they'd ask, "Hey, Dad, are you going to work? You going to the base?" And it was even hard to even just drive by the base because, you know, you see the jets and you just want to go. I just wanted to be there on the line, be there to fix the things and get the jets in the air and complete the mission. But, you know, once that, after a couple months and realizing that I wasn't going back, that's when it really started going downhill, because now, you know, my family had been broken apart. You know, I'm the single dad. You know, my youngest at the time was 2.5. Wow. You know, I'm trying to, you know, get this, you know, trying to figure out this new life basically. And I had to try to figure out my own, you know, just who I was. Because since I was no longer part of the Air Force, I was no longer that F-16 crew chief. I had to figure out who I really truly was and what was in my heart and what God put in my heart and how could I serve in the way that I know I was capable of serving. Because I couldn't just go out and say, "Hey, man, I'm a veteran and I've done 17 and a half years. I've done this, I've done that, and done this." Everybody's gonna be like, "Well, that's great. That's cool. That's awesome." You know, but well, how does that help me? What are we doing this now? You know, and there's no, just because I had those brownie points doesn't mean that I was capable of doing it. And it was hard. It was a very tough and difficult transition. So it created a lot of anxiety. You know, there was a lot of frustration financially, you know, and then having to deal with, again, a lot of other stuff that was going on post-divorce, the animosity, the anger, the lack of communication and the frustration, you know, that all played a part, man. And it was a really, really long road. I would say it took a little over a year, honestly, to be completely honest, to where I was able to say, okay, this is who I am. This is what I'm going to do. And this is how I can put my skills to use. And so, and a lot of that was like trial and error. And a lot of it was kind of like, "Hey, man, God, I got this. I know what I'm doing. I'll try to figure this out on my own." And then just stumbling on my face and kind of just picking myself back up and trying to continue to push forward.
That makes a lot of sense. And that's, you know, in the sense, you're actually faster than most people, because the average person that goes through a divorce, it takes 6 months to 2 years. Not only you're losing your marriage, your job goes away, you're becoming single dad and everything else. And now you're taking a culmination of an almost career fully, and then now saying, "I'm going to wrestle with that." So even though I know it was hard for you, I commend you on actually still actively wrestling it, because most people get caught up in the mist. Because Charles Spurgeon says it's best. It's like depression, anxiety, those types of things. It's like a mist. It just hits you, and you don't even know. And then you're like, "I can't see 3 feet in front of me," and you don't even have a flashlight or anything else. It's like that fog and mist, and you're like, "Where do I go?" So that's huge. So what took you out of that mist? What took you out of that fog to go over and transform to that superhero?
You know what? 100%. It was all God. You know, you know, in the military, we sit there and we want to focus and we want to focus on the mission. We prioritize the mission, what the mission is. That's the mission. And whatever happens to achieve the success of that mission, that's what we're going to do. You know, for a lot of people outside say, "Hey, I got my kids. That's my why." You know, and my kids obviously were my why. They are my why. You know, I had to succeed and push through for them, because if I wasn't around, if I succumbed to those demons, if I, you know, became one of the 22, then what are my kids going to do? What is that legacy that I'm leaving for my kids? You know, how is that? And believe me, those thoughts were actively in my head, you know, especially early in the beginning. And where I just want to throw my hands up and say, I give up. But it really, truly was God, and God put the right people in my life to where they kept me pushing through, where they kept me focused on him. Even when I was at my lowest point, you know, they were like, hey man, you got this, you got this. And even when I completely did not see a way out, and I was like, all right, you know, I got to get through this. And, you know, I put my pride aside and I started doing other things to where I was being able to focus more. I was able to see the light. I was able to kind of get through that mist. But it's almost kind of like a spidey sense, if you will, you know, to kind of like get through that. Yeah, you know. And then I was just basically becoming more in tune with my faith, not religion, because religion's a business, and religion, and if you do anything religiously, I believe that's just a rote routine. It was my faith. My faith truly is what got me through everything, because my faith in God, knowing that God was going to put the right people in my life to help me through that. You know, he put the right people there to help me lift me up, to support me when I needed to point me in the right direction. He opened up the doors to the right people to where I can go and talk to and get what I needed to get done. You know, that's really, truly how I got through everything. And when I built my foundation solely on faith, I saw a lot of doors opening. You know, I was a mechanic. Like I said, I was a mechanic on F-16 fighter jets for a long time. Yeah. You know, I worked for Spirit Airlines for a little bit, and I hated every minute of it. Hated every God-waking minute of it. And not because I couldn't do the job, because I could. It's because that's wasn't what God put in my heart. You know,
I just thought it because it was Spirit Airlines, and a lot of people don't like that. That's what I thought it was for.
Yeah. You know, and it was like, man, it wasn't what I needed. It wasn't what I wanted. And he allowed it because that's what it needed to in that season. So that way I can see that and I can kind of get through that. But it was more like, hey man, you know, I want you to lead these men who really need that, who need to get out of that fog, who need to get out of that mist, who don't understand, who don't know where to turn to. You need to be that person that they can turn to so you can help guide them and help them build that foundation in faith and that relationship with God. So that way they can have that. Because if we're not standing on a foundation, man, we're just going to be running in quicksand, and we're just going to continue to sink. And that weight that we carry on our shoulders, just as men alone, the weight that we carry on our shoulders to know that we have to win, we have to get through this, because I've got kids, I've got bills, I've got family, I've got this. And then your own personal doubts and your own personal feelings and your own personal issues, you know, all that stuff weighs on you, man. And it starts sinking in. And then once you start sinking in, then it becomes like, you know, you're up to your neck and you're like, what am I doing? You're drowning. And so, but if you build that foundation in faith, man, I mean, that's really what it was about. And even after that year, when I kind of got out of that mix, it still took me like another, 6 months to really understand what it was God that was really doing for me and to push through.
And that makes perfect sense. Even now with the Air Force or most of the branches, they have the pillars, and we put it in there, but we really need to make that an active pillar when it comes to faith, spirituality. That pillar needs to be just as strong as the physical, the mental, the emotional. The spiritual needs to be that pillar. And when we get out of the service, we don't have those pillars to stand on. And the civilian sector kind of grabs the ones that they feel that fit each individual, and they sometimes put all the weight on there. For a total person. And our definition of war hero to superhero is you got to have those pillars, and we go from bedroom to boardroom, but you got to have pillars within those rooms to have things stand. Or like, what is it called? 2x4s or 2x8s. It's a supporting wall. I'm not mechanical at all, so I'm just really trying to make this reference on the fly. So if everybody's like, what? Like, hey, put it in the chat, tell me how to say it, and then I'll go and say it. But the long story short is you got to build the foundation, you got to build the supporting walls. Most rooms have 4 walls, or if you have circle walls, it's crazy. But so you got to have those. You got to have those pillars, and they all got to be even. The walls got to be even. So when we uneven the walls or uneven the pillars,
and not only that, when we're in the military, especially in the Air Force, we have our manuals. You know, we have our manuals on how to fix the jet. You know, if there's a problem, if the jet doesn't want to start, and we have the troubleshooting and shooting tree, and we're like, okay, well, this could be the problem, and we'll leave that down. And everything's already laid out for us. But when we get out of that, nothing's ever laid out for us like that anymore. It's not. And we have to create that. And we have to create those pillars, and we have to find out where those pillars are, so that way we can build those pillars up. You know, the same way it's already been built for us in the military, you know, and that's why when new weapon systems come online, a lot of people are like, yeah, I want to jump on that, because they're actually building those pillars based on everything else. But they have that something to fall back on. But when you're in that civilian sector, you don't have that. It's that death tactic theory where you either going to go through it, or you're going to win, or you're going to die. You know, one or the other. It's up to you. So we have to, you know, in the civilian sector, a lot of veterans don't really, and that's what I think a lot of veterans get frustrated with, and that frustrates them, that they don't have those pillars. They don't have that you know, load bearing wall, you know, to where they can kind of put their back against it and then kind of get their SA, and then kind of see where everything's going. And then they can go, okay, I can attack this first, I can attack that first, and I can attack that. And it's already kind of laid out. It's not that way in, you know, in the civilian world, really. You know,
no, it's not. There's some agencies that are doing that, and we hope to do that with War Hero to Superhero, is to take those people out and help build those walls back up and say, hey, let's build your wall, not the Air Force or the Army or the Marines or even the law enforcement. There's walls in there that they go over and get built. But definitely. So let's transition to now your superhero status. So how do you help others transform, and what is this ticker on the bottom? Come on, describe it, because everybody's seeing it, so they might as well know what the website is.
Yes, everybody, go to faithfullyled.com. I'm a certified John Maxwell leadership coach, and when I was in the Air Force, one of the things that I love to do besides working on the F-16, working on the Viper, was I was the training manager for my guys. And I love to be able to train all the new airmen. I relish that. I love to be able to do that. I love to be able to go out there, teach them, get them hands-on and stuff like that. That was something I love to do. And so I got my certification with John Maxwell. But when I started Faithfully Led, what Faithfully Led's mission is we're here to inspire and to build leaders in the Christian community, to have Christ-centered leaders that we need in the community. Because right now, listen, you go onto the wall, you turn on the radio, you turn on whatever, you go on your internet radio now, or, you know, you open up Facebook. What do you see? There's nothing but frustration. There's nothing but, you know, negativity. Faithfully Led isn't about that. Faithfully Led is to build that foundation in Christ. We're Christ-centered, you know, organization, to where we're going to build men and build leaders in that faith. We're going to build that up to have them go out and say, all right, you know, I know what happened. It happened for me. It didn't happen to me. And I'm going to get that. I'm going to go in this direction to where I know that I'm not broken. I know that I've made mistakes, but those mistakes are going to help me build, and they're going to be my testimony to where I can show other people how to do that and how to be leaders out there in my community. But we're going to start in the home. We're going to start right there where you are right now, and not so much saying, hey, we're building this roadmap and you're going to get to this point here, but we're going to forget where we're starting at. We're going to try to move you up. No, we're building people right there where they are right now to become leaders in their home, become leaders in the community. And it's a Christ-centered, faith-based project. So I do a lot of that, but I also do leadership building with companies and other entrepreneurs. So especially if they're in MLM, you know, all that other stuff, I help them build their teams and how to function, not so much from a profit standpoint, but to teach them Christ-centered objectives on how to see their business in a different perspective and how to build their team and to be a genuine leader where people want to follow them and people believe in them, and then people buy into not only what they're trying to build, their vision, what they're trying to build, but also help build them in their business.
So basically, you're carrying them holistically. You're basically helping them build those 4 pillars, using Christ as the tallest pillar in that particular regard to go over and do that.
Yes.
And it sounds very similar to what we're going over and doing. You just coming from the business side, and also for those men that are specifically. So that's fantastic. So let's go jump into a couple things that you would give someone else while you're leading them. So this is what we ask every single war hero superhero bring in, is 3 superhero tactics. So I want you to go visit back yourself in the mist, and then now where you're at today, what tactics would you have given yourself in that mist to pull you out? Or if you're dealing with these men, from Faithfully Led, how do you go over and inspire them, or give them some type of supporting walls while they build their own?
Okay. Well, first of all, what we'll do is we have to analyze and figure out what is it that's creating the most anxiety. Because when you have that anxious, that anxious deal right there, whatever situation or trauma that's creating that anxiety, that will then manifest itself into the depression, because you can't get over that anxiety. That first step is always that anxiety, because it's the unsure. You're unsure of the future. You're not sure what's going to happen, and then that creates so much anxiety. Then, if it doesn't manifest, it becomes this depression. So we attack the root cause of it. So we attack what happened, and so we break that down to let them understand that, hey, this didn't happen to you; it happened for you. For instance, in my personal experience, when I had a divorce, the beginning was, oh my gosh, why is this happening to me? Why is this going on? Why is this to me? Why is my life going this direction? At that time, I didn't really understand why that was happening. But later on, I realized that it was happening for me. If I had somebody outside, even though at that moment, I wouldn't have listened to them, but after a while, I would have said, okay, maybe they have a point. Let me try to see their perspective from it, and try to see where they're coming from with that. It would have been a lot easier for me to accept what was happening, because if you're not accepting what's happening at first, you're just going to continue to you're reacting to what you don't want. And then that just becomes even stronger. So that first pillar is really to understand that root cause and to build on that. Second, once that's identified and that cause is identified, now you can really sit down and break down, what is it that's truly in your heart? What is really that God gave you in your heart to say who you are and what you're going to, and not just what you did and not just what you can do, but what is it that is really truly that you identify with, but that is inside you. A lot of men for a long time, they said, hey, I just got to work. I just got to make this money. I just got to pay these bills. That's that. But inside they're like, hey man, I want to write a book. Hey, I want to be an entrepreneur. Hey, I want to go into construction. I don't want to do what I'm doing right now. I want to learn a different trade, but I don't have that skill. That second part is finding out exactly what their heart is. Because if you want to learn a different trade, if you want to be a different person, if you want to go in that different direction and know that you can be someone, whoever it is you want to be, that has to be cultivated. And so that second part is understanding that and then cultivating that, because now you've already, that first part, you started that healing process. You started that journey and saying, I understand that I'm not broken. I understand that, this is happening for me, even though I may not see it, but I know that this, whatever I'm going through, this pain, this anger, this frustration, this suffering is all going to pay out in the end, because everyone has to have gone through this. Everyone. I mean, if you look in the Bible, you look at Job, story of Job, even the story of David, they all go through this, some sort of pain, and they become somebody great. Yeah. So you build that, help them understand that, then you build the direction where they want to go. And then the third part is essentially sustaining that and understanding how, once you're on that road, what it is that you're doing. And that is, what your mission is going to be, because that's how you're going to define and really truly figure out the actual mission that is in your life. Because once that point comes in, then you're going to sit there and basically zero in on that target and say, that's what I want to do. If it's in construction, hey, great, you're going to be the best construction worker you ever want to be. If you want to build a business, it's going to be what type of business and who you want to service, what age group you're going to service, who's your perfect avatar. If you want to be a podcast host, okay, well, what topics did you want to talk about? What did you want? How did you want to do that? How did you want to start that? Who's going to be your audience? Who do you want to talk to? If you were listening to it, would you listen to it? Think that and that sort of nature. And that's where that refinement comes in. And then after that, it's just basically just you're on autopilot, man. And it's just that cycle, to get them through that. I always teach the OODA loop concept: observe, orient, decide, and act. And that I created my own concept to kind of follow through with the OODA loop. I call it the ICI method, IICI, and that's inspire, integrity, culture, and then invigorate. So once you get through that, all that stuff, and you're acting on all that, it all comes together.
So it sounds like you made the true transformation from war hero to superhero, and you left a little war hero enough to go over and captivate the people, because you went acronym.
Yeah, definitely, man. I say, you take the crew chief off the flight line, but you can never take the flight line out of the crew chief, man. It's always going to be there.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I failed out of flight line, so they kicked me off. I was glad. When you said training manager, I'm like, that's me. That's me. I've had 7 AFSCs, so I'm like, yep. Yeah. I'm like, that's me.
Yeah, man.
So that's really awesome. So I want to thank for all the people watching. I definitely want to thank Eric Zuli. He went over and specifically we're going to give him a shout out again on the comments. This is what he did for you. He shared it to 3 groups. Bam. Outstanding. There you go.
Yeah.
So Sarah had a question before we close out.
Sure.
What is John Maxwell? She was curious about that.
Oh man, John Maxwell. I'll tell you right now, John Maxwell is probably the most prolific leadership expert guru that you'd ever meet. John Maxwell, he's been in leadership for 40, 50 years. He started as a small town pastor, and then he grew from there. And he has a leadership. Literally, countries seek after him. And seek his advice and seek his knowledge. He has a worldwide platform. I know he was just in I believe it was in Peru last year, and he was talking with the president there and helping him build a leadership platform and how to build leaders within his own organization and things like that. So John Maxwell, if you ever Google him and check him out, he is the world leader in leadership, man, and he's outstanding. I mean, he's written so many books. One of his most famous books is 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, and if you haven't got that, I highly recommend to get that, because any leader really needs to have that in their library. Another tip: leaders read all the time, man. I read constantly. So, guys, become a bookworm,
Looks like you got a friend. She wants to connect with you another time.
Yeah, absolutely. Come on ahead and just, you can either find me, connect with me on Facebook, or you can email me at sean@faithfullyled.com. You can go ahead and go to the website and connect with me there. And, or like I said, you can find me on Facebook, facebook.com/faithfullyled.sean. I'm on there. Come on, DM me or on Instagram, faithfully_led, and then Instagram me the message there. So, but please, I would love to talk with you, Sarah. Absolutely.
Awesome. Sarah went over and took up the last part of my show, so thank you, Sarah. She's my co-host for that 2 seconds.
Yes.
There we go. So again, I want to thank you, Sean, for going over and joining us, and also the audience has said. I want to give a special shout out again for Eric Zuli, our CEO of Easy Way, which we broadcast on there. We also broadcast on YouTube and Facebook, but we have a TV show actually with Eric's network on the Easy Way Network. So if you want to take Sean to the next level and have him come on our show next month to be our War Hero to Superhero interview for the month, going over and reaching out to 11 to 14,000 plus each and every week, all you have to do is give 3 seconds of your time. That's it. We'd love for you to watch all 29 minutes and 10 seconds enrolling in the interview. But if time is hurting of you and you could spare 3 seconds, that gives a view. If he gets the most views within 3 days, he's also competing with his fellow War Hero Superhero compatriots this week. But if he gets the most views in 3 days, he gets uplifted to the show. So we'd love for you just to go take 3 seconds, literally. It's not even a moment. It's half a moment to go over and to invest. So we'd love for you to go over and help Sean out. So I want to thank you for joining, and we're going to go over the last comments and then close out because we got more comments. Look at there. She's been listening to a lot of audiobooks, and she says, happy to help where I can. So that's awesome. So you already got a super fan. Wow. There you go. First
Sarah,
time on.
I'm looking forward to connecting with you, Sarah.
Cool. All right. So we will check you guys out. And that's another episode of War Hero Superhero. And we're going to close out for the evening and see you guys tomorrow. Thank you much.
Bless you guys. Take care.